Universal Casualty, Super Q,
los Miami Dolphins y tú, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Son los Dolphins, nuestros Miami Dolphins, el team número 1 en toda la nación. Y son ellos orgullo de Miami y de todos los latinos en la capital del sol. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Este año no me hablen de los Redskins, no me hablen de los Chargers, ni de los Dallas Cowboys, porque los Dolphins son número 1 y lo demostrarán al llegar al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Nuestra línea está mejor que nunca y nuestra defensiva fue siempre la mejor. Y es por eso que yo no tengo duda que los Miami Dolphins ganarán el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl.
Universal Casualty
Y Super Q, los primeros. Bueno, caballeros, todo el mundo que cante con nosotros. Dame una D, dame una O, dame una L, dame una P, una H, una I, una N, una S. ¿Qué es lo que tenemos? Miami Dolphins. Me voy para el Super Bowl. 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 Me voy para el Super Bowl.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our heart.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, sponsored by BetUS, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. What's up?
For those of you who are not watching live or after the fact on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel or the I Am a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page, Aaron the Brain currently in the Miami Dolphins starter jacket, got the Miami Dolphins cap on. Brain, he's got the Miami Dolphin t-shirt on. Brain, are you drinking the Kool-Aid? Are you all in, baby? He's got the Kool-Aid. He's got the Kool-Aid. He's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's all aboard the hype train, baby. Let's go, Dolphins.
It is time to buy in, baby. I am drinking the Kool-Aid, and it tastes good.
Let's go.
It tastes even better when you really wait for it and you really, let it ferment a little bit before you really dive in.
You really did let it ferment for a really long time. You waited, you held off, but we got you. You're in, you're on board, you're bought in, Brain.
Oh, yeah.
The Miami Dolphins get the 21-19 victory at home over the Buffalo Bills. And actually, that reminds me, because of that victory, there's something that I just wanted to share. Special little shout out for all the Buffalo Bills fans out there that might be tuning in after. It is all right because the Miami Dolphins are 3-0, the only undefeated team in the AFC. Let's go.
Oh, man. What a time to be a Dolphin fan. What a time to be alive.
Oh, my goodness. Unbelievable. This game, Brain, it really was the first time that a Dolphins-Bills game had this kind of juice attached to it in a really long time, right? I mean, there was a big Dolphins-Bills game a few years ago when the Dolphins needed to get that win week 17 to make it into the postseason, right? That was a big game that the Dolphins came out and fell completely flat on their faces, and it was bad. But even then, even had the Dolphins won that game, that was not a team where you really felt like this is a team that's going to make some big, deep run here. It was just, it was amazing that they were in that situation, but they fell short. But this game, this felt different because you've got both of these teams feeling like actual legit contenders. And you really felt that there was something at stake in this game. And it took you back to, there are, I'm sure, a lot of young Dolphin fans out there that are maybe listening to the show right now that don't remember this from back in the early to mid 90s when you had these Dolphins-Bills matchups and they were all gigantic because the result of that game was going to play an outsized role in determining who ended up being the winner of the AFC East. And that is exactly what this felt like. Exactly what it felt like on Sunday. And you had that feeling that if the Dolphins could get this win, it was going to be a big statement of intent, but also it was going to give them that leg up, especially because we know that the Dolphins are now 3/4 of the way through this tough opening month of the season. And they've got a game coming up on Thursday at Cincinnati that we're going to talk about. But with that win in Buffalo, even if they should fall short coming up in this game against Cincinnati, they're going into this soft part of their schedule and they're cruising along, right? Now, I want to get this out of the way right here at the top, right? Because we're the Same Old Dolphin Show. And we're called the Same Old Dolphin Show because the Dolphins so often are just that, the same old Dolphins. And anybody who is watching this team right now knows that this team does not look like the same old Dolphins. right? But I just want to tell everybody, let's not get carried away just yet. I mean, we're all excited. We're pumped up. But if you see the pinned tweet on our Twitter at Same Old Dolphins, you know that September is not the time to be talking about not the same old Dolphins, because there are still all of October, all of November, all of December, and even into January where the Dolphins have important games to play. There's plenty of time to screw them up. I mean, and if you've been following this team for any amount of time, you know that the last 3 times the Dolphins have started 3-0, they've failed to make the playoffs, right? So let's not get too carried away too early. But I can say, I think I can safely say, Brandon, you'll tell me whether or not you agree with me, that all signs at the moment are pointing to this not being the same old Dolphins.
Yeah, well, and that's the reason that I'm buying in, is because if you look at the last couple of times that this Dolphins team has started 3-0, it was against inferior opponents. It wasn't this murderer's row schedule that we looked at and then followed by a soft underbelly of the schedule. I mean, we're literally going into this game against Cincinnati. I haven't looked at the line. I would guess that we're underdogs, short week going into Cincinnati.
3.5 points. It's Cincinnati minus 3.5.
Yeah, and that's not surprising. It's a very winnable game. But after this game, the Dolphins are going to be favored pretty much, I think, 8 games in a row. And so the Dolphins have a legitimate shot here if they can go into Cincinnati and come away with a victory. I'm not saying they're going to go 12-0, but they've got a legitimate pathway to a couple of stupid games and still being able to be like 10-2 going into their tough stretch at the end of the season, where they have a pretty rough stretch with 5 really tough games in a row, and then the Jets. So the Dolphins right now, like, I'm not saying that this team is going to be like Super Bowl contenders at the end of the year, but they have made it to the point now where the expectation should be where it honestly, where we wanted it to be coming into this season, which is not this team just being contending for a playoff spot, not this team just making the playoffs. This team should be able to make the playoffs and win a game and put themselves on the map as legitimate contenders going forward. And that's, to me, I was not ready to buy in until they proved that they could do that against an opponent like Buffalo. And, Buffalo had a lot of injuries. That's true. And if Buffalo didn't have all those injuries, I probably wouldn't have put as much stock into the Dolphins need to win this game. But injuries or not, that Buffalo team, with the injuries that they have, probably beats all but a handful of teams in the NFL. Maybe like 8 to 10 teams do what the Dolphins did in that game. And that means that the Dolphins are in that category, that the Dolphins are one of those teams that can beat just about anybody when they come into their stadium. Like, the Dolphins are legit. They're a legit threat. And now that we're there, and now that you look at the way this schedule lines up, the playoffs should be a given. I mean, I'm not saying that they're guaranteed to make the playoffs, but it would take a meltdown for this team not to make the playoffs.
Well, as of right now, after that victory, the Dolphins have a 76% chance to make the playoffs. So that puts them in a good spot. Now, like I said at the beginning, 3-0 is something that has happened, 3 times in relatively recent memory, and the Dolphins failed to make the playoffs each of those times. However, the last time the Dolphins started 3-0 with 2 divisional wins, 1998. That team went 11-5 and made it to the divisional round of the playoffs. So, a little bit of a different story here. This is a different kind of 3-0, I would say. So stock is rising on the Miami Dolphins. Real quick, before we get into talking about this game, reminder to everybody, if you haven't done so already, make sure you're following us on Twitter. I'm at Amplified to Rock. He's at Aaron the Brain. The show is at Same Old Dolphins. Make sure you are subscribed to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. Smash that like button, folks. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notifications bell so you know every single time we go live. You want to make sure that you do that. Download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere you get your podcasts. And then make sure you're visiting dolphinstalk.com each and every day. It's your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. And right now, if you're a Miami Dolphin fan, I imagine you're eating up all the content you can get because people are talking in glowing terms about the Miami Dolphins right now, and for good reason, because your Miami Dolphins team is proving that they are not a fluke and that they are, in fact, legit. It's a very exciting time to be a Dolphin fan. Brain, there are so many things to talk about in this game, and almost every single one of them is good. It's hard to say anything bad about it because I was going to say that, you know, the one thing that was kind of bad was Josh Boyer's game plan. But it really, ultimately, it turned out to be okay because all of that blitzing that they were doing in the first half, when he flipped the switch in the second half or late in the first half, really, and stopped calling those blitzes all the time, and the Dolphins were bringing 7 up at the line and then dropping guys back into coverage and then getting home. They were getting to Josh Allen relatively frequently without necessarily having to bring that rush. I mean, it really turned out to be a good defensive game plan and a really good set of adjustments at halftime by Josh Boyer. This team, the Miami Dolphins, did not allow a touchdown in the second half to the Buffalo Bills. They gave up 3 offensive points to Buffalo in the second half, which tells you just how strong of a performance it was by a Miami Dolphins defense that, coming off of that Baltimore game, we were all feeling pretty low about. And I think that was the biggest thing that we were worried about coming into this game. And boy, that defense showed up in a big way in classic bend but don't break fashion.
Yeah, and look, I'm not gonna just heap praise on Josh Boyer. I think he did a nice job of adjusting. I would still say the same thing of it was pretty obvious not to be like overly aggressive in this game and not come out just on fire blitzing Josh Allen. And then they did that and it didn't work. And then he adjusted to do what you kind of expected the Dolphins to do. And then the Dolphins had more success with it. So again, you kind of, you can say, well, why did it take him so long to figure that out? But at the end of the day, this is not the day to really kill Josh Boyer either, because at the end of the day, the defense did a great job as a whole. I think it's more about the players, though. I don't think it's so much. I still have question marks about Josh Boyer as a coordinator, as a defensive play caller. I think when you look at the Bills' like first touchdown or second touchdown, the one where McKenzie went wide open because the Dolphins decided to go cover 0 and play 15 yards off with their corners, which made absolutely no sense. Here I said I'm not going to kill Josh Boyer, and here I am killing Josh Boyer. But anyway,
I don't understand. Only you, Brain.
Well, what I'm saying is, the defense as a whole deserves a lot of credit. Those players deserve a lot of credit. The defensive line, the linebackers, Jerome Baker all over the field, Javon Holland all over the field, Kader Kohu and Nick Needham, who had their hands full drawing this, and Keon Crossan drawing the assignment of having to face Gabe Davis and not really giving up much. That's huge. Huge, because Stephon Diggs is going to get his, and X, kind of kept him in check a little bit, didn't let him go super off. But the shocking thing was that they didn't have the breakdowns on the other side. So they deserve a ton of credit. Melvin Ingram,
what a game!
What a pickup! This guy,
oh my goodness!
This guy brings a whole new dimension, because the ability to have a guy that can get after the passer, that can set the edge on the ground game, and do it opposite Jalen Phillips, so that at some point, teams are going to have to ultimately say, well, we're going to pay more attention to Melvin Ingram, and then Jalen Phillips is going to go off. And when they pay more attention to Jalen Phillips, then Melvin Ingram is going to go off. The Dolphins defense is built in a way very similar to the Dolphins offense, that if you've got a great player on one side and a great player on the other side, you've got to pick your poison. Great job by the Dolphins defense in a situation where you're not going to stop Buffalo. You're not going to stop Buffalo from moving the ball. You're not going to stop Buffalo from putting points on the board. But the Dolphins managed to essentially stop the Bills from putting points on the board by only giving up 17 points offensively to Buffalo, which is amazing. It's just amazing considering the talent that Buffalo has.
In the first 2 weeks, considering they had scored 72 combined points against the defending Super Bowl champions and the defending 1 seed in the AFC. I know Tennessee is not the same team that they were last year, but still the fact remains this team was rolling over teams, and the Dolphins found the way to slow them down. And here's the thing that I think is really key in this game. And I mean, and you can praise so many players on this defense. Jerome Baker, incredible game. Jalen Phillips made an impact in this game after having a somewhat quiet start to the season. I thought he had a really great game. Javon Holland played his best game probably of his entire career in this game. Brandon Jones, again, coming up big. Kader Kohu coming up big. Keon Crossan, all of these guys. I mean, so many great. And Ingram, as you said, like the defense was strong. And here's the thing. With the game plan that they eliminated, they slowed down Josh Allen. I mean, when you hold Stephon Diggs to 7 receptions for 74 yards, that's basically shutting him down. You know, when you're holding him to those kind of numbers. And primarily Josh Allen's greatest weapon was dumping the ball off in the flat to Devin Singletary. That was pretty much what the Dolphins had him doing, because he is a freak of nature player, right? He's enormous. He's got elusiveness. He's able to get out of the pocket and move around. And it looks like we've lost the brain here for a second. So I'm going to hop on and put myself into solo mode until we get the brain back. I'll let you know. But I mean, absolutely incredible performance from the Miami Dolphins defense in this game. Great effort all around. Really, it's kind of remarkable when you look at it, because you look at the numbers that Josh Allen put up in this game. 42 of 63. He dropped back for 73 passes, which I believe is an NFL record for number of dropbacks in a single game. He goes 42 of 63 for 400 yards, throws 2 touchdowns, end up with a 94.7 passer rating in the game. Okay, that's fine. When you look at all the numbers as a whole, it would look like the Bills had a much better game than they did. You would think that they would have dominated. But because of the way that the Dolphins defense played, the Bills offense ended up not being terribly effective. And so and I think the biggest key to that is that the Bills had 2 possessions in this game that in the second half that totaled about like 18 minutes of game time total. And those 2 long drives, 40 plays, 18 minutes of game time resulted in 3 points, because the Dolphins bend but don't break defense frustrated the Bills, made them dink and dunk, which was the thing that's amazing. This is the thing that we've always said about the Dolphins these past couple of years, is that it's so hard to put points on the board when you have to put together these long drives, these long methodical drives. It's hard to execute those to perfection. And the Dolphins proved that on Sunday against the Bills. And so Bills fans can talk all they want about how, they dominated the game. They dominated the game. Y'all scored 17 points. So I don't know. I give it up for the Dolphins defense, Brandon.
The Bills ran 90 offensive plays and they scored 17 points. The Dolphins ran 39 offensive plays and scored 21 points.
This is all you need to know about efficiency.
What world are we living in?
Brent, the Bills on those 2 long drives.
It's amazing.
Did you see the stat? The two long drives that the Bills had in the second half, 40 plays resulted in 3 points in those two drives. The Dolphins ran 39 plays in the whole game and scored 21. 6 possessions, 3 touchdowns. I'll take that ratio every single time.
Absolutely. And it's a huge statement by the Dolphins defense, because it isn't even like the Dolphins were rotating a bunch of guys in and out of that game. Those were by and large the same players that were out there for the entire 40 plays. And you had the Bills looking gassed. The Bills, you're supposed to see the defense get gassed on those long drives. Like, the defense is out there on the field too long. That's the platitude that everybody says, that we've been hearing for 20 plus years here. Whenever the defense, breaks and people blame it on the offense too long. Well, the defense was on the field for all that time, and the defense still stood up strong, and it was the Bills that were gassed. So it says a lot about the condition, a lot about what we said going into the game when you said, what's the reason that the Dolphins, give me a reason why the Dolphins will win this game. The Dolphins wanted it more. Bottom line, Dolphins won.
Well, and we lost the brain again there, but what he's basically saying is that the Dolphins wanted it more. And here's another interesting fact. You want to talk about wanting it more? The Buffalo Bills have lost their last 7 games that were decided by 1 possession. 7 straight. So it's one thing to win games, Buffalo, when you're blowing the wheels off of teams, but when you're in a dogfight, you got to have that dog in you. And you know what? The Miami Dolphins had that dog in them on Sunday, and they got the win. We're going to talk about what the Dolphins did on the offensive side of the ball in just a moment when we get the brain back. But first, I want to share a word with you from our amazing sponsor, True Classic. And folks, if you have not already checked out True Classic, you need to go to trueclassic.com and check them out right now. This sponsor has the absolute best fitting t-shirts that a man can buy. And you perhaps know that finding a t-shirt that fits just right it can sometimes be a little bit tricky. Sometimes they're a little bit too loose. Sometimes they're a little bit too boxy. Well, True Classic has already helped over 2 million men finally get a better fit at an affordable price. And if you are listening to the Same Old Dolphins show right now, you get access to the best deal that they offer for a limited time only. Go to trueclassic.com, use the promo code DolphinsTalk, and you're going to get 25% off of your order. And that is off of their incredible t-shirts. I'm wearing my zip-up gray True Classic hoodie right now, so you can get that. They've also got jeans, they've got chinos, they've got sweats, they've got undergarments, they've got hats, they've got jackets, all kinds of great stuff. And it all has the same great fit. Polos they've got as well. So head over to trueclassic.com. Put in the promo code DolphinsTalk, and you're going to save 25% off of your order. And here's the thing. It's 100% risk-free guarantee. You got a 30-day return policy. If you don't like the way something fits, you don't like the quality of it, send it back. They'll give you your money back, and you're going to stay classy with True Classic. Your dad bod will thank you. Remember, use that promo code DolphinsTalk to save 25% off your order at trueclassic.com. Looks like we've got the brain back. At least I thought we did. Brain, are you with us? Let's see. I thought I had him back. I see him. He's there. He's not in the he's not here in the screen. Brain, I don't know what's going on. Try to leave the stream and come back, but we'll get you back in here, Brain, just as soon as we can. But man, We've talked about what the Dolphins did on the defensive side of the ball. Now let's talk a little bit about what they did on the offensive side of the ball, because this is where I think a lot of the haters, and I mean specifically Bills fans, are going to sell this team short, because I think we got to start with the quarterback. First of all, Tua Tagovailoa had a huge game on Sunday because he really busted the some of the narratives that had been surrounding him. Among those narratives, that he's not very tough, that he's injury prone, that he's fragile. Well, he falls down, gets hit, gets back up, looks a little wobbly. It's a pretty scary situation. And first of all, let's talk about that, because he leaves this game, and I don't think there was a Dolphin fan anywhere that felt good about that situation, facing the prospect of having Teddy Bridgewater have to come in at quarterback for the Dolphins. I can't imagine. There he is. There's the brain. I can't imagine anybody was feeling good about that prospect. So Teddy Bridgewater comes in, looks horrible on those few plays where he's in. We get into halftime because the Bills try to get a little bit too cute and end up pooping all over themselves and falling short. So we go into halftime tied up at 14. And then we come out second half and Tua's back. So it apparently was not a head injury after all. It turns out it was a back injury. And the NFL is, I guess, doing some investigation as to whether or not the concussion protocols were followed. But the fact of the matter is, it's an independent neurologist who checks on and clears players to enter back into the game. So, you know, I think this is a non-story here. I'd be very surprised if that turned into anything, because the Dolphins don't have a say in whether or not that player is cleared to return to the game. So regardless, I think there's a non-story. But Tua Tagovailoa comes back into the game, and he had himself quite a ball game. 13 of 18 for 186 yards, does take a sack, throws the touchdown, has the touchdown pass, has that big 45-yard connection with Jalen Waddle, ends up with a 123.8 quarterback rating or passer rating on the day. I thought this was a great game from Tua Tagovailoa. That touchdown pass that he threw to River Craycraft, possibly one of the best passes he's made as a quarterback. Super tight window, very aggressive throw, and right on the money. He's zinged it in there. We hear all kinds of talking. We've talked about it ourselves about, you know, questioning his arm strength. Boy, let me tell you, that pass was right there, right on the money, Brain. It was everything you could have wanted to see from your quarterback in that moment.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but Tua in this game, he was only 13 of 18 for 186 yards and a touchdown. And you know what? I thought this was a better game from Tua all around than the previous game against Baltimore. I thought almost all of his throws were on the money. He had the touchdown to Craycraft, which was the hardest thrown ball I've seen Tua throw, in my opinion, without looking at like next gen stats. To me, that's the hardest I've seen him throw a football, and it needed to be thrown that hard. And then 3rd and 22, and he needs to take the shot, and he hits Jalen Waddle on the money, splitting the safeties. I mean, and that was not even including the pass that he came out and threw right after halftime, when you're like shocked that he's even out there, and he comes right out firing and hits Jalen Waddle on this deep out or this deep corner route between the safety and the corner. And then also the opening throw of the game to Ingold, which was dropped, which was also right on the money. Like, yes, he could have thrown a pick six, and that was the one negative in this game. That was like the one bad throw. But that's kind of the thing with Tua that you're going to get. You have to understand that one or two throws in the game, you're going to be like, oh no, he's going to make that once or twice in the game. He's going to make a throw where you're like, oh, I don't know what he was thinking there. But if he can gradually clean that up and do everything else and play within himself like he did in this game and made all the throws, I mean, that's all you can ask for out of your quarterback. What a game. Well, how about, and I'm ready to buy into Tua. I'm ready to buy into the Dolphins. And the reason that I'm ready to buy into the Dolphins is because I'm ready to buy into Tua.
And that's a pretty big statement coming from you. It's a pretty big statement. Not to say that you were a hater, but you were waiting for that evidence. And he has certainly delivered that over the last couple of weeks. And I think, I mean, you want to talk about efficiency? Josh Allen, MVP Josh over there, averaged about, 6.3 yards per attempt. Well, you had Tua averaging 10.3 yards per attempt. That is efficiency. Brain, can I tell you this? Do you know who the number one ranked quarterback is in the National Football League in terms of QBR this season?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's Tua Tagovailoa.
That is the correct answer. Ding, ding, ding. Tua Tagovailoa, number one in the NFL in QBR, which is ESPN's metric for measuring quarterbacks. Number one is Tua Tagovailoa. Number two, Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen, number four. Patrick Mahomes, number five. Jalen Hurts, number six. It's Tua Tagovailoa hanging out at number one. Oh, Justin Herbert? Oh, he's all the way down at number 11. Where's Joe Burrow? All the way down at number 19. So I'm just saying.
That stuff is, and that stuff is great right now, and you should be excited. At the same time, like, I'm ready to buy into the Dolphins. I'm ready to buy into Tua, but we need to see consistency, because when you compare Tua to Josh Allen and to Patrick Mahomes and even Justin Herbert, even though the numbers are better from Tua and the games have been better from Tua at this point in the season, it's worth noting that it's only 3 games, and it's worth noting that those guys have proven it over longer stretches. So you still need to see more, but at this point, I think we've seen enough to know what the ceiling is and know that the ceiling is right on par with those guys. And that's something that we couldn't say a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, we were hoping that the ceiling could be on par with those guys, but it felt like the ceiling was below, and you just hoped that the floor would meet up there in like where the top 15 was. And you could say, well, at the very least, we have a top 10 to 15 quarterback and a great defense and a great team around him. But now it's starting to look like his ceiling is on par with those guys. And that makes the Dolphins an extremely dangerous team.
And that's absolutely right. Now, and again, it's still only 3 games, and it is still small sample size. That's something that I preach on this show. It is still small sample size. But right now, it's small sample size against some of the toughest opponents that the Dolphins are going to face this season. Because, I mean, even if you look at that schedule, that gauntlet, those games at the end of the season that we were really worried about, those 5 games at the end of the season, Dolphins at 49ers. You scared of the 49ers right now, Brain?
Only because it's the end of the season, and that's when we're going to really find out about this team.
You scared of the Chargers right now, Brain?
If Herbert is healthy, the Chargers, I picked us to win that game because we've kind of owned the Chargers.
Right.
But yeah, I think we're on par. Here's the thing is that look at the AFC. Look, we beat the Bills. We beat them at home. We beat them with a lot of. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're better than the Bills, but let's say we're not better than the Bills. Take the rest of the teams in the AFC. Kansas City, okay, maybe Kansas City's a little bit better than us, though I don't know. They just lost on the road to Indianapolis. Everybody else in the AFC, Baltimore, the Chargers. The Ravens, who we just played an extremely close game with. Cincinnati, we're going to play this Thursday. I think it's gotten to the point where the Dolphins are in the same realm with those teams. It's basically a coin flip where you're basically saying, well, the home team probably wins. That's probably where the edge is. And the fact that the Dolphins are in that conversation, that's what you need to know. Like, we could sit here and we could say the Dolphins are the best team in the league because they're the best team in the AFC because they're 3-0, and then they could lose next week and all of a sudden they're not the best team in the AFC. So it's stupid. But the fact that doesn't matter because nobody cares who the best team in the AFC is in week 3. The point is that the Dolphins are in that same stratosphere. They're in that conversation. That's what this game was about. This game wasn't about the Dolphins being the best team in the division. It wasn't about being better than Buffalo or being the best team in the AFC. It was about making a statement that they belong in the conversation, because if you lose that game, you're not there yet. But they didn't lose that game. And that's why I'm wearing this hat. That's why I'm wearing this jacket. And that's why I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
We love to see it, Brain. It's absolutely wonderful. It's rich, truly delightful to see you coming around in this way. Really, truly is. And I think as you listen, let's come back to this game because there's so much great to talk about. We talked about Tua. He had a great game. Uh, Waddle and Hill largely had quiet games, although Waddle had that big last drive where he had those couple of big catches. But we got to talk about this Dolphins offensive line. And you want to talk about got that dog in him? Greg Little got that dog in him. Greg Little's out there. It looked like he had busted some fingers or something was going on. It looked like he was having a hard time. But that man got back out there and he continued to play. And I mean, I'll even give a shout out to Robert Jones, who got in there and did an okay job. Larnell Coleman went in there and did an all right job. Robert Hunt, again, another big game. I mean, Robert Hunt is, it's getting to be that he's like a pretty shut down guy over there. I mean, this was the Miami Dolphins now, I think we can safely say again, it's a small sample size, only 3 weeks, but right now this offensive line is performing like a very solid NFL offensive line. And it's clear that the upgrades to this offensive line have taken it from a bottom tier offensive line to a very solid NFL offensive line. And that is really helpful. And I think one of the things that is going to be deceiving for a lot of people is a lot of people are going to look at the Dolphins rushing stats from this game and see a total of 17 rushes for 41 yards, an average of 2.4 yards per carry. They're going to look at those numbers and they're going to think, oh, this was not a very good game for the Miami Dolphins from a rushing standpoint. But I think if you take away, I can think of 2 plays at least where Matt Milano just made exceptional solo tackles on Raheem Mostert when he looked like he was about to bust runs of 10 to 15 yards. I mean, the Dolphins offensive line was creating running lanes, and this was just a situation where you had a really spectacular NFL player making spectacular individual plays, and that's the only thing that slowed down the Dolphins running attack in this game, because it looked like for a time that they were going to have quite a bit of success running the ball in this game. And so it would not surprise me to see the Dolphins really start to have that running game wake up here. I don't know if this next game against Cincinnati is going to be the one, although the offensive line is certainly going to be pretty rested, I think, given the fact that they were only on the field for 39 snaps in the last game. But it wouldn't surprise me to see this running game start to come good here sooner rather than later, based on the evidence that I saw in this game against Buffalo and against, we should point out, a very, very tough defensive front from Buffalo.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were without their 2 starting defensive tackles, so you probably
don't make
would have
excuses.
Well, it's not. It is what it is. Like you have to be realistic about it. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Dolphins had a great game running the football. I also agree that there were running lanes, and one of the things that stuck out to me in this game was I was watching it, and you actually saw running lanes, even when the Bills did a good job to kind of close those lanes up a little bit, and they were only like 5-yard runs. There were actual running lanes, and I don't remember the last time that I saw that from a Dolphins offensive line, unless it was like a busted coverage or a defensive player being out of position. You could actually see the angles and the way things are being blocked and the way things are opening up. There is a rhyme and a reason to what they're doing offensively, and the running game is going to come. To me, the real test is, what does this offense look like when they actually play with a lead? Now, we got to see that in week 1 against the Patriots, and the Patriots defended them pretty well, and Miami really wasn't able to get into much of a rhythm in spite of having a lead for basically the entire football game. But as this season wears on and this Dolphins offense, is able to put points on the board early, and this defense is able to hold some teams early, because you're not going to play, Baltimore and Buffalo every week and have to get into these shootouts. When the Dolphins play the Jets, when the Dolphins play, the Vikings and the Steelers, the Dolphins should have some leads in these games. And are they able to impose their will and be able to run the football when they're up 2 scores in the second half and really ice the game like that? That's what I want to see from this team. That's kind of like the next step in the evolution of this offense, because we've seen Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're ballers. Like, the Dolphins are going to be able to do some things in the passing game, but can they consistently run the ball when they want to run the football? Because I'll say, if I wanted to pick one negative from the offense in this game, it was if there was one possession where you really needed to run the football and you really weren't able to, it was the possession that almost cost the Dolphins this football game, which was after the 4th down stop inside the 2, when the Dolphins needed to just gain a few yards on 3 plays, just gain a few yards to give your punter room, and they actually lost a yard. And you could say what you want about the 3rd down play call. I didn't think that was a very good play call. It was shades of Teddy Bridgewater in the preseason. But if the Dolphins end up with the butt punt, if the Bills end up driving down there and kicking a game-winning field goal, one of the main negatives is that the Dolphins were not able to run the football when they needed to run the football most. So I don't think that should be necessarily swept under the rug. I don't think we should belabor it, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think it's something to keep an eye on. But I mean, and you could argue that was like, a rare misstep from Mike McDaniel in the play calling there. But
Sure,
I think,
yeah, and I'm not talking about the play calling as much as it is the 1st and 2nd down. You're obviously running the ball there. The opposing team knows that you're running the ball there. And the point of running the ball there is you're running the clock and you're trying to get just a couple of yards to give your punter space so that you can ice that game. And they weren't able to do it. So is this team, because you're going to need this in December when you're in bad weather and you're in a cold. Hopefully we can have home field advantage and we don't have to worry about that in December. But at some point in this season, the Dolphins are going to be in a situation where they need to run the football. And are they going to be able to? That's the test. Well,
one of the things that will help in those situations is not asking Mike Gesicki to be out there blocking for you, because that was one of the problems on those plays deep back down in the near the goal line, is you had Mike Gesicki back there trying to block for you, and that was a disaster. But I mean, this is just one of those situations where I kind of feel like we need to continue to focus on the good things, because there's so many of them. I love these kinds of calls, the coaching that we're seeing from this Miami Dolphins team. We obviously talked about it on the defensive side, but you got to talk about it on the offensive side too. That bomb that Tua hits on the 3rd and 22, which, I mean, incredible piece of quarterbacking from Tua, but a great play design as well, because you got Tyreek drawing the safety away, which opens up the passing lane for Tua to find Waddle, and he fires that ball off confidently immediately. It was just a beautifully drawn up play. And also, let's go back to that very first play of the game. That pass play where Alec Ingold drops that ball. If he makes that catch, completely changes what happens on that first possession. And again, another brilliant play call. And I think we're going to continue to see the Dolphins mix things up here. I mean, at the end of the day, the Dolphins have a weapon that very few teams are going to have an answer for, and that's the speed that they have at that wide receiver position. So it's really great. Somebody else that I think we need to shout out in this game, Brain, Thomas Morstead, who, like, when you talk about the free agent signings the Dolphins have brought in this offseason, I think they've hit on just about every single one of them. I mean, it's a little bit easier to do that with free agents, but I mean, Thomas Morstead, butt punt being what it is, right? And that was one of those moments where I think I even tweeted out at the moment, I was like, this would be an entirely new way to same old Dolphins lose a game.
It felt like it.
But they avoided it. And even Jeff Darlington tweeted about it. He was like, if you've been following the Dolphins, I can't remember, I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. It was something along the lines of, if you've been following the Dolphins for a long time, you know that the shocking part of this game is not that the Dolphins nearly lost because of the butt punt. It was the fact that they managed to win in spite of the butt punt. that was so incredible. But one of the things that made the big difference was Thomas Morstead punting from his own 20-yard line, blasting the ball all the way down to the Buffalo 6. You want to talk about punt God? You want to talk about punt God? We got the punt God. His name is Thomas Morstead, and he's a family man. Thank you very much, Matt Areza. You don't get to have that name anymore. I'm calling it right now. The punt God is no longer Matt Areza. The punt God is Thomas Morstead. Put it down.
Yeah, well, you can't be the punt God and not be on a roster.
Well, I mean, he's something. The punt God ain't it. Because the punt God resides in Miami, baby. We love it. We love to see Thomas Morstead. I mean, what a great addition to this team he has been. So, big punt makes a huge difference there. Miami Dolphins get the big win, 21-19, outlasting the Buffalo Bills. First place in the AFC East. Undefeated team, currently the number 1 seed in the AFC after 3 weeks of play, the only undefeated team in the AFC. How about this? Here's another one, Brain. A lot of talk. Always been a lot of talk, a lot of a narrative that Alabama quarterbacks can't do it in the NFL, right?
2 of them.
Well, there are
doing it
currently
right now.
2 3-0 teams in the National Football League. And who are those quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, Tua and Jalen Hurts are who are the other Alabama quarterback? I mean,
Right now, the other one is McCorkle Jones.
Yeah, and
he's got one ankle left.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know
I don't wish injury on anybody. I hope you feel better soon, Mac.
I don't know where that analysis came from, where Alabama quarterbacks can't do it. I mean, wasn't Joe Namath from Alabama?
I mean, but that was a long time ago.
Okay, but how many like Alabama quarterbacks have been like really highly touted coming into the NFL?
I don't know.
Tua and Jalen Hurts. They're both 3-0.
I'll take it. I'll take it every day, baby. I'll take it every day. I love it. So anyway, by the way, here's another stat for you. The Dolphins have lost 1 game since Halloween of 21. The Dolphins are 11-1 in their last 12 games. Something going on here, Brain.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm bought in. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. The only thing now, so I was thinking about how I'm feeling right now about the Dolphins, and I was trying to come up with a good analogy, and what the only thing I can like sort of compare it to is like when you struggle so much to get like just to like a certain point of success in your life, like just to be able to sustain yourself, not even to like be like, I'm on the top of the hill, I'm like comfortable and I've got like the world is my oyster, but like just to get to a point where you can like sustain yourself. You've worked so hard and it feels like it's been such a struggle for the Dolphins to get to this point where
oh my God, he froze. You worked so hard to get to this point, and then he froze. Look at this position that he is frozen in, folks. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, I'm sure the brain is in the middle of making a brilliant point, and what a night for his internet to crap out. Unbelievable. But it's listen, it's a great time to be a Dolphin fan, and you're really pleased to see the Dolphins sitting here at 3-0. We know it's early. We know there's a long way to go, but the fact of the matter is, it's you'd rather have those 3 wins in the bank and have this long season in front of you than potentially, have 3 losses in the bank and be climbing up the hills. Look at the Las Vegas Raiders right now. So you're feeling a lot better as a Miami Dolphin fan than you would be if you were a fan of the Raiders right now. So anyway, we're going to transition here shortly. Oh, looks like we got the brain back.
The Dolphins beat the Bills and it broke my internet.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's really been a heck of a night for you over there, Brain. You want to go ahead and finish your point here before I was about to transition to a Manscaped read before we talk about the Bengals.
Yeah, my point is that you fought so hard just to get to this point where you're relevant. And the Dolphins are finally relevant. And now it's just like, okay, we're relevant, but now we still have 14 weeks to go in the regular season. So, like, what do you do with it? Like, where do you go from here? I'm bought in. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I think we're going to make the playoffs. But, like, now what? Like,
well, now, Brain,
now go on a run. Like, literally, even if you lose this week to Cincinnati, you got 8 games in a row against mediocre to bad quarterbacks. Like, at the very least, this team should be 10-2 going into the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the Dolphins, and that's what you do. You're asking that question. What do you do now? You fought so hard to be relevant. Now you're relevant. Now prove that you belong there. Now prove that you belong at that spot in the conversation. Go out there and win all of these games. Everybody was looking, every Dolphin fan was looking at that soft underbelly of the schedule and going, that middle section is where this team is going to eat. Now they've eaten at the tough section at the beginning. So now what do? Now you got to go out there and keep winning week in and week out. It's small sample size right now. Now go out there and grow the sample size and really prove it. That's what you've got to do at this point. And what you've got to do at this point, guys, if you haven't done so already, is you got to go to manscaped.com and you got to use the promo code Dolphins Talk so you can save 20% off of your order and get free shipping on the best men's below the waist grooming products in the universe. I'm not talking about in your state. I'm not talking about in your country. I'm not talking about on your planet. I'm talking about the universe. Manscaped.com. They've got the razors. They've got the ear trimmers. They've got all the different gimmicks if you're into the shaving stuff. And if you're not into the shaving stuff, that's fine because they've got the body wash. They've got the shampoo. They've got the lip balm. A lot of really great products that are going to do a lot of different things for you. So I'm going to recommend that you go over to manscaped.com, use the promo code Dolphins Talk, and then you're going to get a 20% discount. You're going to get free shipping. So it's not like you got to pay get the stuff shipped to you. Yeah, you might have to wait a couple of days after you order it before it gets to you, but you don't even have to go to the store to pick it up. They'll send it to your house. So manscaped.com, use the promo code Dolphins Talk. You'll save 20% off of your order, and then you're going to smell really nice and have some great equipment to get yourself, well groomed. So now the focus shifts to this really tough game in Cincinnati. And I know that Cincinnati looked pretty bad the first couple of weeks of the season, and they had themselves a little get right game in week 3 against the New York Jets. And we're going to preview it here. Normally we don't do the previews on Mondays, but because of the fact that the Dolphins have this game on Thursday night this week, we're going to talk about it tonight. And this is going to be a really tough one because the Dolphins didn't come out of that Buffalo game completely unscathed. Obviously, they weren't maybe as banged up as Buffalo was, but there was some collateral damage. The injury report today for the Dolphins, not a pretty picture. A number of players didn't participate in practice. Xavier Howard was held out. Jalen Waddle now has a groin injury. Tua obviously banged up. Several of the offensive linemen, a lot of guys banged up here. And it's a very quick turnaround. And the Dolphins, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, just spent 40 minutes of game time out on the field. By the way, 40 minutes of game time out on the field, a game in which they won, by the way. The Bills spent 40 minutes of game time out on the field and lost. But, I'm never going to stop rubbing that in, by the way. I'm going to take this opportunity. But anyway, the Dolphins now have a very quick turnaround, and this is going to be tough. This is a tough ask because the Bengals actually have a very high octane offense when it's going. Their offensive line is a huge question mark, however. So if the Dolphins defensive front can show up in the way they did against Buffalo, Joe Burrow is not going to have that same kind of elusiveness as Josh Allen. He's also not as big of a guy. So the Dolphins may have an easier time bringing him to the ground, but he's got some weapons. He's got 3 great receivers in Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. He's got Hayden Hurst as tight end. He's got Joe Mixon at running back. This is a team with some weapons on offense. And it's a team that if they can get going, we could find ourselves in a little bit of a shootout situation again on Thursday night here, Bryn.
Yeah, and this is going to be the matchup that we all wanted to see 2 years ago in Tua's rookie year. We wanted to see Tua versus Joe Burrow. Instead, we saw Ryan Fitzpatrick against I don't even remember who it was, some backup that I think we mocked for we couldn't get his name right in the preview show. So we're finally going to get to see Tua versus Burrow for the first time since their last matchup, which was that LSU Alabama game that Joe Burrow won. But it was an epic shootout where both guys, I think, threw for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I think it's going to be an absolute shootout. I think it's a tough ask. You're absolutely right, for this Dolphins defense to do what they just did to Buffalo and then come out and have to play another explosive offense. I'm not saying that they won't be up for the challenge, but it's a very tough ask. And 21 points is probably not going to be enough to win this game on Thursday. So the Dolphins offense stepped up when they needed to in week 2. The defense got the job done in week 3, although the offense definitely, Tua and the offense definitely did their job when they needed to in this one. But I think this next game is going to be one where the Dolphins offense needs to come through. But frankly, this next one, as much as it took a lot of guts for the Dolphins to win this game, this next game against Cincinnati is going to really be a gutsy effort. I don't care how ugly this game is. If you come out of that game with a victory, like, everybody's going to be drinking the Kool-Aid, because you can't at that point. 4-0 is different than 3-0. Statistically, I think 4-0 teams make the playoffs something like 90% of the time. And to do it against Baltimore, or against New England, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Cincinnati, they go 4-0, man. Like, you're no longer a fringe playoff team. You're playing for the division. You're playing for home field advantage. Like, you're playing to make a run.
It's true. So let's see if the Dolphins can do it. But, Brain, I think it is time. I really do believe that it's time. Yeah, it's time. It's time to check your pulse. Did you check your pulse? Check it. Let's try it again.
I mean, check your pulse if you're not fired up.
That's right. It is time for another Miami Dolphins pulse check. This is where we give you the opportunity to tell us how you are feeling about the Miami Dolphins. You check your pulse. You can send your pulse checks in audio or video form to dtpulsecheck@gmail.com. Send a 45 to 60 second voice note or video to that email address, dtpulsecheck@gmail.com. Give us your name, give us your Twitter handle, tell us how you're feeling, and then sum it all up in one word. And Brain, we've got some feedback already here tonight in the live comments. I got them for you right here. Let's see. Matthew Hicks says pumped. Alan D says contenders. Carlos Hernandez, who runs the I Am a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page, by the way. Shout out to Carlos Hernandez. Carlos, we'll call it one word. He's bending the rules a little bit, but he says blood pressure, which is pretty good. Pretty good. Jeff Harris is pumped. Danimus Robs is optimistic. And John Santos says proud. I like it. I like it a lot. And then we've also got some responses over here on the Twitter machine. At Dolphin Thirsty says awesome. At BJ Fan 05 says electric. KD is the best says lucky. All right. At Kickass Rod is describing his posture, I believe, because he says that he is feeling erect. So he's sitting up in his chair. At Treetop 70 BG says sunny. At Timbo481 says hype. And at Josh Ritter 13 says 1992-ish. Oh, and at Chris Buston 13 says optimistic. So listen, Brain, we got some positive vibes here. I said all along that you weren't going to beat the Bills on vibes, and the Dolphins certainly used more than vibes to beat the Bills, but it has now made the vibes really, really strong and really, really good. So now, Brain, I ask you, how's your pulse right now? Are you kidding me? He froze again. Unbelievable. His pulse is off the charts to the point that his video has frozen again. What a night for Aaron the Brain's internet to really just crap the bed. So I guess I'll just tell you mine. And well, I'll tell you what. My pulse check before this last game against Buffalo, my pulse check was, my one word was, oh, we've got triple Aaron the Brains here. This is unbelievable.
Here we go.
Here we go. Are you back? Can you hear me?
I'm back and I hear you.
Okay. Brain, what's your pulse check?
Well, aside from frozen, which has been what it's been with the internet because of the storm that we're having down here in South Florida, I am rejuvenated. That whole idea of being 1992-ish, yeah, it feels like the first time in a really long time that I'm really excited about what this Dolphins season might be. And yeah, we could always say that in the preseason. And we've been 3-0 before, and we've been a little bit excited. And we kind of touched on this at the beginning of the show. But I really do believe that this 3-0 is different than the 3-0s we have seen in recent Dolphins history, because of the caliber of the teams that we've played, because of the way that we've won the games, and because of the fact that in a league that has been trending offense for over a decade, or about 15 years now, the league has been trending more and more towards the offensive side of the ball. The Dolphins finally look like they have a 21st century offense. And we feel confident about the defense. So it does feel different. It's early, but I feel rejuvenated because I can't remember the last time that I felt this excited in the middle of a Dolphins season. We're always optimistic before it starts, but then once we see the product on the field, there's always something that holds us back. At least the ones that are a little bit more pessimistic, or the ones that have been hurt too many times by this franchise. But I am ready to really believe that this team can do some things this year, and it could be a special season. I'm rejuvenated.
I love it. I love it. I as I was about to say before your internet came back, in the last episode, my pulse check was I was hungry. I was hungry for the Dolphins to be relevant again. And they've proven now that they are. And so now you would think that, you go from hungry to being full. But I have actually gone from being hungry to being ravenous. I am ravenous for more Dolphins football. I want more of this excitement. I want more of this entertaining Dolphins team. I want inject it into my veins, feed it to me, feed me more. I feel like the Ryback in here. All I want is more Miami Dolphins football. It's so enjoyable to watch this team. It is such a delightful and welcome change. It is. I'm just elated. And it's so funny because I have been with my wife. Our relationship started in 2007 is when right? Doing the math correctly. Summer of 2007 is when we met. And no, I'm sorry, summer 2008. And she'd kill me. Anyway, the Dolphins have never really been good in that time. They've been plenty of mediocre Dolphin teams in that time frame, but the Dolphins have never been legit good, with the exception of I guess that first season when they were, the Wildcat season was a lot of fun. But this is the first time that this team is like really feels like they are hashtag actually good. And right now it is just, I've been waiting for so long for this. I don't even know how to respond. And even like her family, they're all Seahawks fans. They've won a Super Bowl since I've been with her. And, their team is kind of always there or thereabouts in the conversation. And they're kind of going through the bad time right now. But man, it's wild. And I can't get enough. And so I've had some, and now I want more. I'm ravenous, baby. I am ravenous for the Miami Dolphins. I'm feeling good. So Thursday night, the Miami Dolphins travel to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. And I am going to be live at the home of Mike Oliva, who you know better as @Dolphins Talk, the head of DolphinsTalk.com. I'm going to his house on Thursday. We're going to watch the Dolphins game together, and we are going to be doing a live watch along right here on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. So if you don't want to listen to Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit talk about the Dolphins, turn down the volume on your TV set, turn on the watch along, and we'll be watching right along with you. And we invite you to join us in the chat. We're going to have some guests. We believe that Aaron the Brain is going to join us, hopefully at some point during the evening. Hopefully Tom Ernest, hopefully Big E. We've got some other folks that we're trying to get hooked up for this event. It's going to be a lot of fun. We did it last year on the Monday night game against Ian Book and the New Orleans Saints. So we're doing it again this Thursday. Probably going to be a much better game, but hopefully the result will be the same, with the Dolphins getting the big dub at the end of everything. So we hope that you will join us. If you have not done so already, a reminder again to make sure you're following us on Twitter. I'm @Amplified to Rock. He's @Aaron the Brain. That's @Aaron the Brain. The show is @Same Old Dolphins. Subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Smash that like button if you haven't done so yet. If you're watching on YouTube, just click like real quick. Hit that thumbs up button. We appreciate it very much. Subscribe, share, tell your friends about it. Join in the fun. It's a fun time to be a Miami Dolphin fan right now. So jump in and have some fun with us. Make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day, multiple times a day, and make sure that you have subscribed to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. That's it for me. Brain, anything else you want to add here at the end here?
No, just pumped up. And I mean, I just can't get over not just that we won that game and that we've won these last two games, but that there's a realistic scenario that this team could be 4-0 after this, and what that would mean. And I keep bringing, I'm like, well, they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose this game. But I said that against Baltimore. I said that against Buffalo. If they win this game against Cincinnati, like, the sky is the limit for this team. Like, you're going to be in a situation where you literally can go on a run and find yourself 12-0. It sounds preposterous. It sounds preposterous, but they legitimately could find themselves in that scenario.
If they win this game, right, and this is going to be a tough game, right? It is to go on the road on a Thursday night is always difficult, and against the Bengals team, defending AFC champions, it's a tough ask. But if they win that game on the road against the Jets, I mean, you would expect that to be a dub. Home against the Vikings, and I don't even know what to make of the Vikings right now. And then home against the Steelers Sunday night, celebrating the 1972 undefeated Miami Dolphins. There's a possibility Dolphins could go into that game 6-0. Imagine undefeated going up against the Steelers for that one. Then they go to Detroit. Then they go to Chicago. Then they come home to take on Jacoby Brissett and the Cleveland Browns. Then they're home against the Texans. So, I mean, you think if you beat the Steelers, you're 7-0, Lions 8, Bears 9, Browns 10, 11-0.
Yeah,
you could be 11-0.
That's what I'm saying.
Thanksgiving.
You're putting yourself no matter what, you're kind of playing with house money because you knew if you started this season 3-1, like you're putting yourself in a position where, like, even if you dropped a couple of stupid games, you're still in really good shape. But you win this game, I mean, you're like you're not a fringe playoff team anymore. You're a legitimate contender, and like people, you can listen to the arguments about like people that say that the Bills are still better than the Dolphins or the Ravens are still better than the Dolphins. But the fact that that's being talked about and that's being debated, that's the whole point, is that the Dolphins are in the conversation, because that would have never been a conversation last year or 2 years ago or 10 years ago to say, oh, are the Bills better than the Dolphins? Well, obviously 10 years ago is a totally different Bills team, but is this elite team better than the Dolphins, or are the Dolphins better than this elite team? The fact that they have national television shows that are dedicating segments to debating whether or not the Dolphins are better than teams that are widely regarded as elite tells you everything. And that's what this win meant on Sunday. And let's just keep up the energy.
Yeah, let's keep it going. I'm trying to somebody just put it in our chat here live that I'm trying to get to, the Jones out with knee issue. Is that Mac Jones?
Mac Jones has like a high ankle.
It was an ankle that I thought.
Yeah.
Somebody's reporting something about Jones being out. That's what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for it. I don't see any report.
Even if Mac Jones is healthy, it's not like
I don't see anything about Mac.
We've gotten to the point where we're not worried about the Patriots.
I'm not thinking about Mac Jones. I'm talking about Byron Jones. I was thinking that the report
Byron Jones is out. He's on the PUP.
I know, but the thought was that he was oh yeah, okay, great. Yeah, they've clarified in the chat. I thought maybe some news had broken while we were doing the show that Byron Jones was going to be out for a substantial period of time beyond this next game, because as of now, the Cincinnati game is the last game that Byron Jones is definitely out. But we'll see what happens from there. If it's Mac Jones, I'm not worried about either way, because if it's Mac Jones, Brian Hoyer, whoever it is, Bailey Zappi, or whoever it is, the quarterback for the Patriots, I'm not worried about the Patriots at this point, okay? I'll worry about the Patriots when we play the Patriots later this season. Right now, I'm worried about the Dolphins trying to figure out a way to win this game at Cincinnati. How about a prediction, Brain? We didn't predict this game. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
I think this one's going to be a shootout. I think it's a really tough ask. I would love for the Dolphins to win this game because of all the reasons that we've been talking about. And if they do, I mean, it's going to be crazy over here. But I'm going to say that it's just a lot. After that emotional of a victory, that physical of a football game, having to be on the field that much with your defense, and then having to do a short week on the road against an offense that's just now coming into their own after a slow start, it feels like this is going to be a really tough test for the defense. But I think the offense can hold their own, and I think this defense can do enough to keep this thing a close game. I think it's going to be a good football game, but I'm going to take the Bengals to win a high-scoring affair, 31-27.
Yeah, this is one of those where my gut, I got excited. Hey, I predicted the Dolphins to beat the Bills, and I would love to predict the Dolphins to beat the Bengals here, but I think given the amount of exertion that the Dolphins had to put forward, the emotional capital that they spent to win that game, it would be a superhuman effort to go on a short week to Cincinnati and beat the Bengals here. And I think I just have a hard time thinking that the Dolphins are going to win that game. I think this is just one of those places where it just feels like they're going to come up short. I'd love to be wrong, but I think I'm going to predict the Bengals win here. I think the Bengals are going to defeat the Dolphins. I'm going to call it, I don't think it's going to be that high. So I'm going to call it 27-24. Cincinnati's going to win that game. And, and hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong and the Dolphins, come back. But I think at this point, this game is, I don't want to say it's a meaningless game because it's not. It's all games mean something. But this is one of those where if you can figure out a way to win this game, sky's the limit. Because given the situation, given what you've been going through, given what you used to beat Buffalo, to now then go on the road on a short week to beat Cincinnati on the road, the defending AFC champion, that would be really some accomplishment for the Miami Dolphins. So I'm gonna say that the Bengals get this one. We've both picked the Bengals, but we're both hoping that we're going to be wrong. I don't know when we're going to be back with a recap show because, like I said, I'm going to be on live this Thursday with Mike, and Friday we're not going to be able to do a live show like we've done the past few weeks. But we'll get another show to you soon, just as soon as we can, and it might not be until next Monday, but either way, we'll be back with you as soon as we can. And we will be with you live Thursday night to watch along with the Cincinnati Bengals as the Dolphins go to Cincinnati. And we're all going to be sitting there and looking for the Dolphins to get that big win and to go 4-0. Because that's what all of us want here, right? We're all big Dolphin fans. So anyway, I'm going to continue to enjoy this win that the Dolphins got from Buffalo. I'm going to take it on. I was wearing my Jalen Waddle jersey at work today with all the Bills fans in the office. They were very sad about it, and I was very happy, and it was a beautiful thing. I'm looking forward to doing it again and again and again. Thank you, as always, to everybody for listening and watching live. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you next time. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, go Dolphins!
That Kool-Aid tastes good, though.